Okay, so part three of this lesson on the years 2000 and 2008, or actually the presidency, but we'll go all the way to 2011 with some events. For example, this event, Operation Iraqi Freedom, which was started in 2003 under President George W. Bush, and is going to continue all the way into 2011, where it's ended by President Barack Obama. So let's look at what it was. It is going to be the second war which was allowed to happen because of the global war on terror. The global war on terror comes out of the Bush Doctrine, which said if you're not with us, you're against us. Okay, we don't make any we don't draw any differences between countries that are harboring terrorism and the terrorists that actually commit the terrorism themselves. Okay, and so we already had Operation Enduring Freedom, which was Afghanistan, which we talked about in the last video. Now we're talking about the next war, Operation Iraqi Freedom, or the Iraq War. Okay, most of us know someone who had served there. Okay, so Saddam Hussein was still president of Iraq at the time of the Afghanistan invasion. Officials in the United States government feared there were connections between Hussein and Al Qaeda. They said that an Iraqi official had met with the leader of the 9/11 hijackings, excuse me, in Prague. Okay, before they were never able to prove that, and so that's going to be found out to be not true. Also, there are allegations that Iraq was rebuilding its weapons of mass destruction program. Okay, Iraq failed to allow UN weapon inspectors access to all the locations they wanted to visit so they could complete their evaluations. In response to this, America felt that he was hiding something. Okay, and so in response, the United States Congress, the legislative branch, passed an Iraq War resolution that authorized the president to go forward with the war in Iraq. Okay, and so Operation Iraqi Freedom is going to start the night of March 19th, 2003, and it started with this campaign called Shock and Awe. Okay, that was a big deal. There's a country singer by the name of Toby Keith. He even played off this and made a CD called Shockin' Y'all. But anyways, let's go ahead and look at it. In March 2003, the United States began bombing targets in the capital of Baghdad in a campaign called Shock and Awe. The coalition defeated the Iraqi army easily, as it had not fully recovered from Desert Storm and the Highway of Death. And if you don't understand what Desert Storm or the Highway of Death is, don't worry, that's coming up in a lesson when we talk about George H.W. Bush, his father. But I want y'all to see what this actually was, is Shock and Awe. And so I found this video for you to see. This was live coverage, okay? This was very big news. Everyone, I remember being in college and watching this with my roommate on TV. There's another part of Baghdad. You can tell that this campaign probably started at 9 o'clock. That's a good shot. That's the kind of stuff that Americans were into. We don't really, when we don't see dead bodies and like that, Americans become kind of okay with what war is, even though there's, I'm sure hundreds of people that are innocent civilians are being killed, if not thousands, that night. But you can go ahead and check more of that. It's just going to be another minute and a half of explosions and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so the next slide. Saddam Hussein was captured, tried for his crimes against humanity, and executed. Saddam Hussein was the leader of Iraq. He had been since I want to say, definitely the 80s, maybe the 70s, I believe. You won't be asked a question about him, but anyways, so once we invade Iraq, he goes into hiding. A few months later, we find him in a spider hole, okay, which is just an underground compartment dug underneath the earth. All right, here's a picture of a soldier who was there when he captured him. Definitely want to pose with Saddam after you capture him. I'm sure they roughed him up a little bit. You can tell there's blood on his mouth. So he's going to go to court. We don't have a picture of him in court, but he's found guilty of crimes against humanity, and he's going to be executed by hanging to death. Crazy. All right. Weapons of mass destruction were never found in Iraq. There was never found to have connections with Al Qaeda, and there was a whole bunch of other reasons why we said we were going to Iraq, and the majority of them turned out not to be true. It is difficult to determine how many Iraqis have died since the invasion, but as the 2007 report stated, estimated more than 1 million Iraqis had died in the war. Now, many of the deaths are due to sectarian violence between the Sunnis and the Shias. And so they kind of had a civil war. It's a whole thing that you definitely won't be asked about, but it's pretty interesting if you want to check this stuff out. Over 4,000 Americans were killed and over 20,000 wounded. Okay? The reason there's a picture of a nuclear weapon is because that was one of the reasons that we went in, and they was not true. Okay? So the economic effects of President George W. Bush, again, he was elected in both 2000 and re-elected in 2004. So post 9/11 wars, obviously, he increased defense spending, okay, which is definitely an understandable response to the attacks of 9/11. However, they also are going to draw on Reagan's experience, where increasing military spending and cutting taxes for the rich or the more wealthy, and they believe in the trickle-down theory, which is actually not going to work. And so Bush is going to appoint a bunch of guys who used to work on Wall Street and put them into positions of power, which are meant to regulate Wall Street. And there's some shady stuff that's going to go on. And in 2008, the housing bubble bursts. Okay? And so we were definitely on our way to a depression greater than the one, or excuse me, greater than the one we saw in the 30s. Okay, and so he's going to pass a stimulus package or the bank bailout. And you heard a lot of people talking, the government's helping Wall Street. What about Main Street? And why are the 99% of the citizens bailing out the banks, which is a legitimate concern. Why are we bailing them out of trouble and giving them money when they're the ones that put themselves in a situation? The reason being is because there's 3 or 4 major banks, and think of them kind of like pillars that all these other banks get loans from, and then they turn around and give loans to smaller banks and so on and so forth. And so if these major banks would have gone bankrupt like they should have, the entire economic infrastructure would have collapsed, thus leading to a depression not only in the United States, but one throughout the world. And so I definitely agree that you had to bail out the banks, but I definitely understand the concern with why we did that, but we had to. When he leaves, unemployment's at 10%, and so 1 in every 10 people did not have a job. And because of the tax revenues fell and the deficit grew, some people refer to it as the Great Recession, okay? And we see this, again, like I'll mention it again, we see this earlier with Reagan, okay? And if you understand President Reagan, President Ronald Reagan he's kind of the standard of what Republican presidents strive to be like, at least most of them. Okay, and so let's move on to our last slide, which is the election of President Barack Obama in 2008 and 2016. The main thing you need to understand about him, they may ask you about Obamacare, but we'll get to that in a little bit, but the main thing you need to understand about this gentleman right here is that he is the first black African American president elected. Okay, and so from the Civil War ended in 1865, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. From that, we finally have our first African American president. So he's going to pass a second stimulus package after Bush did the first at his very end of his presidency. So Obama builds on that and gives another one. Okay, he removed troops out of Iraq after 8 years of combat. with over 4,000 deaths and more than 20,000 wounded. Okay, that was a very, towards the end, it became very, very unpopular. A lot of the American people felt that the war could not be won, all right? And so he ran on the campaign, he would get him out. He did. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, was passed by Democratic Congress and President Obama during in March 2010. This is a very watered down version of what Obama had intended. Obama intended a universal health care package where everyone in this country would have access to health care. However, because of powerful health insurance lobbyism, it was whittled down, watered down to what it is now, which just pretty much makes everyone have to have insurance, or else you get kind of fined. So anyways, he supported the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, with United States air power supporting the Libyan rebels. Okay, and so he did that. And then in May 2011, the United States eliminated Al-Qaeda's leader, Osama bin Laden, who had been hiding in Pakistan. And I think it's important to say, I'll ask the question, is he the most disliked president ever? Who knows? Would other presidents be as unpopular if they were present during this time of social media and things like that? Probably. But definitely, there's a huge disliking for him. A lot of it is based off ignorance, where they think that perhaps he'll take away their weapons, even though this is his 8th year and he has done no such thing. And so anyways, thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions about this lesson or anything else course related, that's anything U.S. history related, please contact me through the class Facebook page, our Twitter account, or this YouTube channel. If you don't have the ability to do that, then hit me up on email at chrisdeleon@sbcisd.net if you have any questions about this. Or as always, if you're in class and something that I discuss doesn't make sense to you, please raise your hand and allow me to explain it. Thank you so much and have a great day.